Greetings. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is a special report, When Celebrities Meddle. He was among America's most famous and revered actors. He was strikingly handsome. Men fantasized of being him, and women were swooned by him. He didn't have much in the way of want when it came to female companionship. He was very well paid. He traveled around the country and around the continent. He was considered a very gifted actor, came from a family of actors. Everybody involved with him and his productions thought he was excellent at his job. Whenever he played on stage, there were always many fans wanting to see him. And whenever he went to a major city, he was invited to all the best of parties. In Washington, D.C., he was a regular feature at many parties attended by politicians, senators, congressmen, judges, soldiers. And the President of the United States had seen him on stage and was very much impressed by him and actually wanted to meet him, but unfortunately, the actor was a little busy with other things. Yes, he was one of America's leading actors until the night of April 14th, 1865, when he changed American history forever and caused irreparable harm to the part of the United States he claimed allegiance to. Of course, the man I'm speaking about is John Wilkes Booth, and the president he murdered on that fateful night so long ago was Abraham Lincoln. Booth was full of himself, but that's the way of actors. He thought he was doing something heroic, something noble, something that would make his name in stars forever. Well, it is, but not for the reasons he wanted. He was shocked when he found out how condemned his act was, and it was. You see, when Abraham Lincoln was murdered by this man who made a living pretending to be somebody else, it sealed the fate of the South. No longer would they have someone who was only interested in reuniting the country. They would have a new president, Andrew Johnson, a radical Republican, a man who hated slavery and really hated the Confederacy. Reconstruction for the next many years would be a horror. And it could be argued that a lot of the racial problems that we have in the United States today stem from the way that went. The Ku Klux Klan was created as a way to fight the Reconstruction as it was conceived and implemented by the administration that followed Lincoln's. Mr. Booth was mercifully killed only a few days after the assassination. This man who made his living pretending to be somebody else thought he could take it upon himself to make decisions that he was not qualified. What I speak about is the profession of actors and other people who are there to entertain us. Now, they've been around since civilization, but throughout most of our history, and I don't mean just the United States, most of the history of the world, they were down in the gutter along with prostitutes. In fact, Augustus Caesar, the first emperor of Rome, made it illegal for any senator to marry an actor or even marry someone whose parents were actors. Maybe they knew something we didn't. In recent years, in fact, in recent decades, we've seen celebrities, mostly actors and actresses, who go out of their way to try to explain to us, the people that actually do things for real, what's right and wrong and evil and good in the world. This has gotten really intense in recent years and actually recent months since a new administration has entered the White House. Think about it for a minute. These are people that are there to entertain those of us who actually do the work. Now, this is not to say that there aren't brilliant actors and actresses out there, and many of whom have been patriots. Lee Marvin, for example, he was a Marine in World War II. Jimmy Stewart was a bomber pilot in World War II. That was not a job for the faint of heart. Ernest Borgnine served in the U.S. Navy long before he graced American television screens as McHale. And there are others as well. But let me go back to what we're seeing now. Actors and actresses pretend to be somebody else. They make a lot of money pretending to be someone who drives a cab, or someone who is a soldier, or someone who's been in a battle, or someone who has been a political leader, or someone who has suffered a horrible tragedy, or someone who's gone into outer space. And this is probably why throughout most of history, they were kept in their place. And maybe that's where they need to go back to. We have been pummeled with people who have done nothing but make movies or go off and, well, get involved in all sorts of nefarious activity we're beginning to find out, but I won't go into all that. Celebrities are being revered for something they are not. They're pretenders. They're paid for that. They're paid to give us a chance to escape. You didn't see this 50, 60, 80 years ago. You didn't see someone in Hollywood trying to tell you how to vote. You didn't see someone in Hollywood trying to condemn the government or go out and protest something. You saw them supportive of society. You saw them respectful of their fans because they realized that if it wasn't for the people who appreciated their work and making movies and singing and things like that, that is work, if it wasn't for their fans, they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't live in luxury, the likes of which most of us couldn't imagine, let alone attain. A man shoveling snow, a man hauling garbage. They have real lives. Someone working in a factory, someone who's working in an emergency room. Oh, that's a big source of actors' income. Emergency rooms. Have you ever met somebody who worked in an emergency room? It's a pretty tough job. You regularly see people die for real, not fake. And you don't make anywhere near as much money as the actors and actresses who play doctors on television or in motion pictures. Same thing with police officers. Have you ever met a homicide detective, a real one? I have. When a friend of mine was murdered, I got to see how that's actually investigated and dealt with, and these real people are amazing. They don't make anywhere near as much money as the people on screen that pretend to be like them. Now, if people want to pay a lot for entertainment, that's fine. If people want to pay a lot for people to be entertained, that's fine. If people want to pay a lot to entertainers, that's fine. But when these people come back and tell us how to live, when we're the ones who are actually doing the real living, that's when celebrities meddle, and that's when things get nasty. The purpose of entertainers is to do just that, entertain. Now, granted, we have had some that have gotten into politics. Ronald Reagan is one of them. But Ronald Reagan, when he was an actor, did not go out telling people how to live. He did his job. Later on, when he became the head of the Screen Actors Guild, he got very political because he was there to fight for the rights of actors and actresses who were not paid all that much or treated all that well back in the day. Those who went off and entertained troops in war zones like Bob Hope, who literally put themselves at risk to bring a little bit of home to men who were out on a battlefield and many of whom would never return. Those are heroes, and those are real entertainers. Occasionally, we've had a few. Jane Fonda, otherwise known as Hanoi Jane, decided to go to the capital of North Vietnam while Americans were being killed in the battlefield. A terrible war that was, but that wasn't the time or place to handle such things. I've seen actors whose work I've enjoyed over the years. Now I'll never look at their movies again, even though some of them are my favorites. Mr. Hanks, Apollo 13, great movie. I'll never look at it again or enjoy it as much. You've proven to be somewhat contemptible of those who actually got you to be so rich and successful. Mark Hamill, Star Wars, a wonderful thing from my childhood. I loved that movie. I was one of those teenagers in 1977 who went out and saw the movie 13 times or something like that. We didn't have home video, we didn't have streaming, and we didn't have anything except standing in line on a hot summer night. I'll never look at any of your movies again and think good thoughts about you. No, celebrities need to know their place. As John Wilkes Booth taught us, when they get out of that space, it usually leads to disaster. But then there are some who will forever be loved. We were talking about World War II veterans who went on to acting, many of whom were wonderful people by all accounts, one of whom you probably don't know who he is. His name was Russell Johnson, more famously the professor on Gilligan's Island, one of those wonderful escapist TV shows back in the day when the Vietnam War was raging, when people were being assassinated and all sorts of terrible things were going on in the 1960s. Americans tuned into this rather silly and rather nonsensical show just to get a bit of relief from all the craziness that was going on outside. I don't know what Mr. Russell's politics are, and you know what? He never told us. Neither did any of the other cast members of that show. They became members of our families, effectively. Gilligan was a goofy fellow. He could have been a liberal, he could have been a conservative, he could have been a religious fanatic, but we didn't know and we didn't care, and he didn't tell us because he was too much of a considerate professional. Alan Hale, the skipper, took on that persona so much that he actually opened a restaurant when the show went off. He was loved by everybody in the Los Angeles area that would go to his seafood restaurant. He cared greatly for the people that made him a success and respected them and didn't get into their politics. Didn't tell them what to think, didn't condemn the people in office. No. And then, of course, there's Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann. Do you remember her? Gorgeous. Yes, Mary Ann did win out over Ginger. I think that's official at this point. Dawn Wells was one of the most beautiful women who ever graced American television. Can you imagine any members of the cast of Gilligan's Island showing up at an anti-war protest in the 1960s? What would we have thought of that? What would we have thought of them? No, they were too nice to us. They cared too much about us. And that's why they're going to be remembered. And now that they've all passed away, they're going to be revered for many years to come. So think about that the next time you see somebody on television who is spouting out how evil an American presidential administration is, or how wrong something is, or how stupid you are, or how bigoted you are. In Reno, Nevada is the grave of the late Miss Wells, and I'm told it's a place of pilgrimage. People go there and leave flowers, and there's a bench you can sit at and meditate. She was born in Reno and was laid to rest there. And for many, many, many years to come, people are going to remember her and other such people who knew their place and gave us all some relief from all the real work that was done in the world. Miss Wells knew her place, and it was in the heart of her fellow countrymen. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends, and these days, make the effort to share with your enemies. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. The address there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, Clown World and the Deep State must be destroyed. Good day.